Communication. It is not just an exchange of words. It is an art upon which our relationships, careers, successes, and even our sense of self in this world depend. A couple of years ago, I realized that my communication skills left much to be desired. I noticed that I found it difficult to express my thoughts in a way that they would be understood correctly. It was even more difficult to resolve conflicts or discuss contentious topics without turning the conversation into a battle. And then I decided to study this issue more deeply. Over the course of several years, I read more than 50 books on communication, and in the process of studying, he noticed important patterns and discovered simple yet effective principles. Today, I want to share with you the most vivid lessons that have stayed with me after reading. These lessons have helped me improve both my personal and professional relationships. They made my conversations more productive and conflicts less frequent. I hope they will help you too. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the videos, and leave comments on what topic to cover in the next video. The simplest and at the same time the most important lesson I have learned is that communication begins with the ability to listen. But it is not just a process where you remain silent while another person speaks. It is active participation in the conversation, even if you are not saying anything. Often in conversations we are so busy preparing our own response that we stop truly listening to the other person. Many authors emphasize this problem. For example, in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie teaches us that if you want to build a strong relationship with someone, you need to learn not to speak, but to listen. And not just to listen, but to show genuine interest in what the other person is saying. Carnegie provides numerous examples of how popular speakers and successful leaders built their reputation on the ability to listen attentively. He writes that if you really want to please people, you need to become a good listener. It doesn't require much effort, but the result can be astonishing. Imagine how pleasant it is to communicate with someone who is interested in your thoughts and feelings, rather than just waiting for a moment to insert their own. When I started applying this principle in my life, I noticed that my conversations became deeper. People began to share their experiences with me and trust me more. This also changed my perception of communication. I used to think that I needed to speak intelligently and a lot, but now I understand that the power of communication lies in the ability to give the other person space to express themselves. So, here's a question for you. How often do you really listen to your conversation partners? Will you be able to fully focus on someone's words the next time you talk to them? When we start listening, the next natural step in the conversation becomes the ability to ask questions. A question is not just a way to clarify something. It is a powerful tool that helps uncover the depth of thought and allows a person to better understand themselves. Questions open up space for reflection and create a moment of awareness when the interlocutor begins to analyze their responses. In the book, Leadership and New Thinking, John Maxwell thoroughly examines the importance of questions. He explains that successful leaders always ask more questions than they provide answers. This approach allows them not only to better understand people but also to stimulate their thinking. After all, when you ask questions, you show that the opinion of your conversation partner is valuable to you. For example, instead of immediately defending your point of view in an argument, ask a simple question. Why do you think that? This question not only eases the atmosphere but also helps you better understand the person's motivation. It also opens up the possibility for dialogue rather than monologue. And it makes communication more meaningful. Moreover, questions provide an opportunity for a person to express their thoughts. Very often, even in everyday conversations, people do not find the opportunity to express themselves. We are used to talking about ourselves and our experiences, forgetting that others also need support. Try asking an open-ended question at your next meeting with friends, such as, "What has inspired you lately?" Or, "What new things have you learned about yourself?" Such questions not only enrich the conversation but also help your interlocutor feel important and needed. Another important discovery I made is that our communication is far from always being about words. Non-verbal communication is what we convey through our body, facial expressions, gestures, and even our gaze. It is important to understand that people pay attention not only to what you say, but also to how you say it. Alan Pease, the author of the book Body Language, claims that over 90% of information in communication is transmitted through nonverbal signals. If you say that you support your interlocutor but cross your arms over your chest and do not look them in the eye, your words will lose their power. The interlocutor will feel discomfort and may even doubt your words. One of the most striking examples of the influence of nonverbal communication can be found in negotiation books. In negotiations, it is important not only what arguments you present, but also how you deliver them. Gestures, intonations, and posture all influence the outcome of negotiations. For example, an open posture with direct eye contact demonstrates confidence. In contrast, small gestures like tapping fingers or biting lips reveal nervousness and insecurity. One day at work, I noticed that my colleague always looked away during important discussions and crossed his arms. This undermined his authority in the eyes of those around him, even though he spoke confidently. After I read several books on nonverbal communication, we talked about it, and he started to train his posture and body language. It literally changed his presence in the team. People started to pay more attention to his opinion, so we know how to listen, ask questions, and monitor our body language. How can we connect all these skills into a cohesive whole? Answer: empathy. It is the ability to understand and feel what another person is experiencing. Without empathy, all our efforts in communication may prove to be useless. In the book Emotional Intelligence, Daniel Goleman explains that empathy is not only the ability to recognize the emotions of others, but also a tool that helps build deeper and more trusting relationships. When we show empathy, we demonstrate to the other person that their feelings are important. This creates space for open and honest dialogue. For example, imagine your friend is going through a tough time at work. Instead of immediately giving advice or trying to offer a solution, just listen to him and say, "I understand that this can be very difficult for you." These simple words can make a huge difference. They show that you are on his side, and his feelings did not go unnoticed. But empathy does not end with words. It is also the ability to observe how a person behaves and to adjust to their emotional state. If your conversation partner is nervous, do not try to calm them down immediately or criticize their emotions. Try to understand where this feeling is coming from and give them space to express themselves. Empathy is impossible without sincerity. All the books I have read emphasize the importance of being genuine in communication. People can always sense when you are sincere and when you are trying to manipulate or play a role. This is the paradox of communication. To succeed in communication, you need not only to learn certain techniques but also to be yourself. Mark Manson, in his book The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, discusses that sincerity is the key to real relationships. If you want people to trust you, start by telling the truth, even if it is not always convenient. Sincerity is attractive because it is a rarity in a world where everyone tries to appear better than they actually are. However, sincerity does not mean rudeness. It is about the ability to express your thoughts in a way that does not hurt another person. Finally, one of the most powerful tools in communication is pauses. At first glance, this may seem contradictory. How can silence help in a conversation? However, pauses give us time to think and allow our conversation partner to better perceive what has been said. When I read Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, the former FBI negotiator, I was struck by how important pauses are in negotiations. He wrote that sometimes, when the situation escalates, silence can become the most powerful argument. A pause makes the other person think, while allowing you to gather your thoughts. Strangely enough, silence sometimes speaks louder than any words. Using pauses in conversations helps avoid impulsive decisions and reactions. This is especially useful in tense situations, where it is important to avoid mistakes or words spoken in the heat of the moment. Pauses allow for a deeper immersion into the essence of the conversation and enable the reception of information on a more profound level. After reading numerous books on communication, I realized one thing. It is important not only to know the theory but also to apply it in practice. Communication skills are something that develops with experience. You will not become a master of communication just by reading dozens of books, but by applying this knowledge every day, you can achieve amazing results. So, how can you use all this knowledge in your life? Try starting with one skill, such as mindful listening or asking questions. Try it out, and you may see how your communication becomes deeper and more productive. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments and tell us how these principles have helped you in your communication. Also, like and subscribe to the channel. Goodbye, everyone.